and other stakeholders take already some measures to address the issues. But despite this, our women still face discrimination through the social exclusion, through the poor access to education, public services, and infrastructure. And this result that the CDWD women are not only left out of the gender equality agenda, but also not being able to advance our status. So we want to spotlight with this event on the diversity and inclusion and the rights of CDWD women, including the discrimination and the poverty we face. But also we want to emphasize the significance of the discussion in relation to the ongoing review, and especially for those who have faced the deepest level of exclusion. I would like to thank the organizers which are behind this event, which is the Global Forum of Communities Discriminated Based on Work and Descent, GFoD. I greet Paul, thank you for being here organizing this, and of course Simona Toropkoy. ERGO Network, which we are also partner and a member of the GFoD, and also very grateful for being having on our part the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health of Finland, and also Ministry of Social Policy and Demography of youth in Macedonia. I would still say a few words of the event, the overview, what we actually have ahead of us. First, we would hear representatives from Finland, North Macedonia. They will share a bit about the importance of addressing the systemic discrimination through their governmental policies. Then we also hear from the women from the civil society who are part of the CDWD communities, and they will share their experiences from the ground when it comes to economic empowerment and fight against the poverty and discrimination. Then we also hear from the representatives of EAPN, UNHCR, but they will also emphasize the importance of addressing the multiple layers of discrimination, kind of looking from the more intersectional perspective, also on the policy formulation and sharing their practices. So saying this, I believe that we have great guests to have here today that you should also listen from, not only from me. So first, I would like to invite Janette Gronfors. She's a senior specialist at the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health Department for Clients and Services in Healthcare and Social Welfare in Finland. She's also kind of contributing to this event as a co-host, and she's also our dear friend and the Roma fighter. So Janette, please, the floor, it's yours.
Thank you very much, Gabriela, and thank you to all those who has been working with these moments that we are just dealing now. As said, I'm Janette Grönfors from Ministry of Social and Health Affairs, and I'm a senior specialist responsible for the coordinating Roma policy in central government and acting also as the Secretary General of a National Advisory Board on Romani Affairs. Given the honor to speak on behalf of the Ministry of Social Health and Health Affairs, I would like to use this opportunity to share something about policy and practices related to Roma and Roma women in Finland. As we all know, the Roma are the largest ethnic minority group in Europe. Many Roma live in the margins of the society, below the poverty line, with limited access to basic rights and services, and disproportionately represented in public and political life. The Roma frequently face discrimination, prejudice, and exclusion, also in my own country, here in Finland. Roma women and girls are often subject to multiple forms of discrimination. Finland's Roma policy, drawn up for the period of 2023 to 2030, includes the targeted measures concerning Roma women. For example, preventive health, well-being and safety measures, and awareness raising among families about domestic violence and safe childhood. In Finland, there are almost 40 Roma organizations, mainly very small ones, but 2 large Roma organizations carry out activities focused on Roma women. Just to mention that all implementation to this policy, on this policy program in coordinating and Roma driving driven manner. I would like to address the less discussed issue on gender equality in the Roma community. It is a question of treating everyone equally within the community as well. Roma women's job at home is often everything from cleaning and cooking to looking after children and her husband's clothing. In a patriarchal culture, such as Roma culture is in Finland too, many fear that the benefits and status they have gaining will disappear due to the gender equality measures. In Finland, in the Roma community, domains are community. These are social domains, are community, religion, society, in that order. There is no need to change the order, but they need to be better developed and tied together because then the Roma community itself will benefit best. The Roma, all genders themselves are agents of change, and all these have to be done together with the society. Roma women work in low-paid sectors, and then occupational healthcare may not be the best possible either, which in turn also affects well-being. Solutions have already been found. In addition to good anti-discrimination legislation, what we have here in Finland, one is to raise the level of education, which is also already moving in the right direction. And finally, empowerment and inclusion of Roma women and youth is a strategic priority in Finland's Roma-related foreign policy. The prohibition of discrimination is a key principle of human rights. We need more effective policies to combat discrimination and to promote the rights of the Roma. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Janette, and thank you for your ministry also joining the event. And now we have our keynote speaker, the minister from the Ministry of Social Policy, Demography and Youth in North Macedonia, Gjoko Velkovski. It's a very big pleasure to have you here today with us. And as North Macedonia, it's already contributing a lot to our work at the United Nations level, and your investment into Roma women, it's already proving a lot of results, and having Roma women themselves in your ministry. Thank you very much for joining us today, and please take your floor.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you. Thank you, Gabriela. Designated ladies and gentlemen, the Macedonia pays particular attention to the inclusion of the gender perspectives in all policies and shapes of action, recognizing it as a fundamental strategy for achieving gender equality and following the goals set in the Beijing Declaration on the inclusion of the gender perspectives in both state policies and international organization policies. Macedonia is a member of the Council of Europe and shares the Council's commitment to ensuring an adequate level of social protection for the most vulnerable categories of citizens in particular. The strategic priorities of the gender equality strategy of the Council of Europe 2018-2024 target the prevention and fight against gender stereotypes and sexism, prevention and fight against gender-based violence, equal access to justice for women, balanced participation of women and men in decision-making, protection of the rights of women and girls as asylum seekers, migrants and refugees, and integration of gender policies in all other policies and measures. The Convention of Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence, the Istanbul Convention, is the most comprehensive document on violence against women, which provides a broad framework of action for the prevention, protection, and support of victimized and punishment of preparations. The government of the Macedonia ratified the Istanbul Convention in 2017, and it entered into force in 2018, thereby strengthening the process of its implementation. Two international conventions dedicated to Roma women and Women Travelers Organization in Skopje were an extraordinary opportunity for all of us together as institutions, international collaboration and partners, as well as NGOs to discuss very important issues, inclusion of Roma women in society. I believe that we will be able to honestly answer many questions, but also jointly determine the direction of advancing the status of Roma women everywhere. Macedonia is recognized as an example for a country with traditional intercomprehensive and interreligious tolerance, and a country where differences are respected. This is a great future of a state that takes care to improve the lives of all its citizens, and that continuously creates policies to equalize the level of inclusion and integration of all ethnic communities to the one society for all. Our aspiration is building a cohesive society, strengthening for continuous economic and overall sustainable development. Macedonia wants to develop into a society where citizens, regardless of ethnicals, will feel secure and have equal opportunities for personal development and progress. A society that does not segregate but integrate, a society which by providing equal rights and opportunities to all, does not exclude it but include it. The priorities of Roma women are a part of the effort of the Macedonia to promote and support the gender-sensitive approach in the decision-making processes at all levels, as well as to strengthen the social and political representation of a woman in all areas of society. Roma women needs to and problems are similar to the problems of other women in Macedonia, but at the same time, Roma women face specific gender-based problems which are characteristic for the Roma ethnic community. The whole collection of issues about the position and the progress of the Roma community is directly linked to the improvement of the position and emancipation of Roma women. Therefore, the development of gender relations in the Roma community is of primary importance, because it is not uncommon to find that the life is double discrimination, both as woman and as a Roma. Our efforts to advance the status of Roma women in our community are derived from the strategy and national action plans for Roma in Macedonia, as well as the special action plan for Roma women, which represent the foundation of measures and activities in all areas that have direct impact on the stature of Roma women in the Roma community, that is Macedonian society. Also, we will follow the recommendation regarding Roma women and girls adopted by Council of Ministers in Council of Europe. Bureau, all events, conferences, workshops organized related to Roma women is opportunity to see that progresses has been made in the integration of Roma women, and to highlight the challenges that exist and that we all need to work on it in the future. All contribution to the promotion and protection of the rights of Roma women and the fostering of equal opportunities, the diversity and social inclusion by fighting discrimination, anti-Gypsyism is one step for integration of Roma women. Supports member state government in the design and implementation of laws, policies, programs, and measures important to ensure that human rights standards are effectively implemented and truly benefit for Roma women. In the end, let's do it together, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Minister, for your keynote speech, and thank you for joining us here today, and also for the commitment that the North Macedonian government is showing towards the women, and showing it also by organizing the events, by joining different activities, and not just by speaking, but also by doing. So thank you very much for being here with us. And now it's the time to move to the CDWD women experiences that we have here from the ground. We actually have 3 speakers here present. The first one is Alba Hernandez. She's from the collective, feminist collective of Romani gender experts, and I would say that this transnational network of Romani women that aims to empower our peers and through networking, knowledge, sharing, and building professional capacity, it's actually one of the kind when it comes to the to Roma women here in Europe. So we are very happy to have you here, Alba, and looking forward to hear from you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. Thank you, everyone, for having me here, for joining us in this important event today. As Gabriela said, I'm Alba Hernandez. I'm a Roma feminist and active racist from Spain, co-founder of the feminist collective of Romani gender expert. It is a racialized feminist network of Romani feminist professionals who came together, and among other things, to fight racism and sexism within the labor market structures. To start my intervention, I want to provide a key data about Romani women unemployment. So according to 22 FRA report, only 29% of Romani women across Europe are in paid work. This alarming statistics reveals the extent of the challenges that Romani women face. Notably, 71% of Romani women live below the poverty line. I will say again, 71% of Romani women live below the poverty line. The feminization and racialization of poverty is evident, as Romani women, like many other racialized women, often do not get into the labor market. And if they do, they are forced to perform lower paid and undervalued work that is essential to the capitalist economy. The labor force of racialized communities, especially women, is frequently exploited as a cheaper, flexible labor, reinforcing the class stratification. This dynamic deepens the structural inequality that keeps Romani women in cycle of poverty and exclusion from economy, empowerment, and opportunities. This not only sustain economic disparities, but also enforce social hierarchies based on gender and race. Racialized bodies, particularly those women, are systematically devalued in the labor market due to both gender and race. As Pastora Filigrana, a Romani woman from Spain, explains, the farther an individual is perceived to be from whiteness, the less value is placed on their labor. This hierarchy results in the racialization of women's work being considered less skilled and therefore cheaper, which reinforce exploitative practices. This intersection of race and gender makes racialized women, including Romani women, particularly vulnerable to low wages, precarious employment, exploitation, all of which are essential to maintain the inequalities of the capitalist system. We can categorize Romani women in the labor market into three distinct groups. First, the most prominent one is the one that the data shows, are those Romani women who are completely excluded from the labor market, both formal and informal, facing severe poverty. Can you hear me? Okay, I see the Zoom is playing a little bit. So as I was saying, we have the second range of Romani women, which are disproportionately pushed into informal labor markets. Here, they lack protections such as healthcare, job security, and legal safeguards, which further limits their economic mobility and strengthens their vulnerability to exploitation and poverty. The question that comes to me here is, are labor unions addressing racism within their agenda? It seems that no. The discrimination against the Roma community, and particularly Romani women, is so pervasive that even for jobs for them to access basic employment opportunities, highlighting how colorism further intensifies the exclusion of racialized women from the workplace. This reinforces, of course, structural barriers like anti-Roma racism that prevent Romani women from participating in the labor market regardless of their qualification or the nature of their job. At the same time, we must address the ongoing discrimination faced by professional Romani women. Many have performed to the meritocratic ideals of the white capitalist system, working hard, studying for a bachelor degree, obtaining a master's degree, and even pursuing the PhD. However, despite their qualification and experience, Romani women professionals are often pushed out of the labor market or forced to accept jobs that do not match with their expertise due to systemic and structural racism. Again, this leads us to a critical question. Whose knowledge is considered valid and for what purpose? In discussing the Western colonization of knowledge and expertise, we refer to how dominant systems, particularly those tied to colonial histories, as the European one, have determined whose knowledge is considered legitimate or value. This impacts the labor market, where the skills and expertise of racialized communities, especially women, are frequently dismissed or undervalued. Expertise from this group is often excluded from formal recognition, reinforcing the perception that only Western, white, and male-dominant knowledge systems are valid. In the labor market, a common rhetoric suggests that Romani women knowledge and expertise are primarily valid only within the Roma human rights field. This limits their professional scope to advocate working concerning their own communities. By confining their contribution to Roma rights, broader industries exclude them from mainstream employment opportunities, reinforcing, again, the notion that their expertise is niche or not transferable. This exclusion underscores the racial and gender bias that dictates who is seen capable of performing certain types of jobs. Romani women expertise systematically are undervalued in wider labor markets, where they are not recognized as experts or professionals outside the issues that directly tie to their ethnic background. This creates a form of professional segregation, limiting their participation to activism and advocacy while overlooking their potential to contribute to other fields. This discrimination in the labor market is a transgenerational issue. We, both older and young generation of Romani women, continue to face the same systemic barriers and prejudice. This perpetuates cycles of exclusion, economic marginalization that limits their ability to achieve social and financial independence. In conclusion, the systemic discrimination faced by Romani women in the labor market highlights the urgent need for change. Addressing this issue requires recognizing their expertise, dismantling anti-Roma racism and sexism, creating pathways for meaningful inclusion across all sectors. We demand implementation of specific policies and increased funding within philanthropic to address the unique challenge and poverty faced by Romani women, ensuring that their rights in accessing employment and pursuing economic independence. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Alba. Applause. So thank you for bringing us the data, but also kind of opening the context within this broader context and looking really like on zooming on Roma women in this case. And apologies for this technical small problems. I think there was something with the recording actually happening at this very moment where you speak. So apologies for that. And thank you for your contribution. I think this is a great start for bringing the experiences from the ground, bringing the numbers, the data, and the narrative about Roma women to this event. We have actually 2 more speakers. I think I actually heard that one is still not here, so we might instead of we might wait for Nora if she would join us. We would start with Nimani Singh. She's from the National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights. So Himani, I see you are here. So if you can unmute and join us with your contribution, that would be very much welcomed.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Thank you. So, hello, everyone. My name is Imani. I'm from India and a Dalit belonging to the CDWD community. And I'm representing NCDHR, which is National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights, and also associated with GFoD as a rights expert. I'm really grateful to the sponsors of this event and grateful for this opportunity to represent NCDHR today. And I would like to use this opportunity to share the issues that are faced by CDWD women, that is the Dalit women in India, and their work in the labor sector, where I'll be highlighting various dynamics such as education, employment, wage, and justice, and where these women particularly are, Dalit women are particularly discriminated. But before I explain, for the convenience of everyone, I'll explain what CDWD is. So CDWD are the communities which are discriminated against work and descent due to their social origin. Thus, the umbrella term to describe these communities as CDWD. For instance, commonly known as Dalits in South Asia, or the lower caste communities who face social exclusion, such as their limited access to education and employment. So here I'll be using this platform to explain how Dalit women in India face numerous challenges in their work and labor sector due to the intersection of caste and gender discrimination as well, where multiple discrimination or the double operation is a significant issue where they are denied choices and freedoms in all spheres of life, thus making them vulnerable to violence and systematic marginalization as well. Here, I'll be supporting this with key data, some statistics pertaining to issues that are faced by Dalit women in India, and in particularly is India's work and in the labor sector as well. For instance, the ILO report of 2019, which states that 98% of manual scavengers in India are Dalits, and mostly there are women, where this work, which has been just reduced to a caste-based occupation. And another report by Oxfam India 2019 states that 45% of Dalit women, they lacks access to decent healthcare compared to other 26% non-CDWD women. And plus, the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment in India shows that there are around 770,000 women manual scavengers in India, which are mostly women only. And thereafter, this National Human Rights Commission is, they also published another report in the year 2019, which shows that 90% women are involved in the in prostitution, and they belong to the Dalit and tribal communities. So these statistics are something which demonstrate the severe disparities that are faced by Dalit women in India, and what is the need of Dalit women at this point, at this hour, is that Dalit women in India, or Dalit women workers in India, they are citing their seeking immediate government action and assistance on the same, and citing poor working condition, which is leading to their complete violation of their rights. And here at this event of Beijing 30, I would also like to speak about this this event and this platform. This Beijing 30, which refers to the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action, and also a landmark agreement that was adopted around the 4th World Conference on Women. So this UNECE they organized a regional review meeting, and in the meeting 2019 to assess the progress and challenges in implementing the Beijing 2019 platform for action in the UNECE region. So this Beijing 30 was a phenomenal process as it took up the issues faced by Dalit women. So regarding Dalit women, the Beijing platform for action emphasizes the importance of addressing the intersectional forms of discrimination that are faced by women from marginalized communities, including Dalit women, and works to promote gender equality and empower women in the region through various initiatives, including the Beijing+25 regional review meeting, which was aimed to accelerate the progress towards gender equality. However, in this recent year, this issue has got invisibilized, and in conclusion, the call to action now would be to giving more representation to Dalit women at the regional, national, and global level, and where they could voice their issues pertaining to the majority of the Dalit women and the issues that they have faced. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Himani. Thank you for your outline of the Dalit women. But also, it's great to have you on the board with the GFoD as the rights expert and contribute to the larger work that we are doing here. I'm actually still looking around if the Nora joining. She actually didn't join us yet, so there might be something in her way. So I would just say that as we also foresee some open questions and answer for this session, I would encourage you all to write them in the chat at this very moment, and we might collect them, and we will open for a broader discussion also after our two other contributors from the kind of another panel addressing the discrimination and economic empowerment. If this is fine for you, I'm just checking if I can actually see the chat. So far, we have just people greeting each other and confirming the speeches. So you can also use it for raising the questions, and I will either read it or I will call you to read it yourself after the next panel. So that actually would be my pleasure to invite Juliana Santos Valgren from the European Anti-Poverty Network to speak about the Roma women's barriers to employment and economic inclusion. But I know that Juliana, she also has this broader concept that she can bring us and the knowledge from her current but also previous jobs on racial minorities. So Juliana, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Gabriela. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Juliana Santos Valgren. I saw that I could speak Portuguese, which is would be a major pleasure because I'm a Portuguese native speaker. But I think I will just save the interpretation for the colleagues, and I will try to speak in English. So as Gabby mentioned, I'm the director of the European Anti-Poverty Network. And what is an European Anti-Poverty Network? The European Anti-Poverty Network is a network of networks combating poverty and social exclusion in Europe. So we have more than 34 national networks plus some European organizations, 12 European organizations. And our aim is really to combat what we call the multi-dimensions of poverty, because poverty to be understood needs to be also taken in the context of a broader spectrum, just not a socio-economic spectrum. I was invited today to talk about discrimination in the labor market. And I saw that we are using different languages, racialized women, Roma women, women of color. And I think I just want to clarify that probably in my presentation, I will use the words racialized and sometimes women of color, but I'm talking about those who are women or identified as women from racial, ethnic, religious, and minorities backgrounds. So I'm talking about them, and especially, of course, Roma women. When it comes to the barriers in the labor market, especially for racialized women, including Roma women, what we see is there are a combination of structural and systemic barriers. So, and both factors reinforce each other, which makes discrimination felt by Roma women, for example, even more difficult. There are some trends that we have identified in terms of what makes this labor market access, makes this case of discrimination more difficult or less difficult. I'd like to share with you 3 trends. First of all, begins with recruitment. So the unequal access to the labor market, it comes with a lot of stigmatization, a lot of racism, and moreover, if someone managed to enter the labor market, there is a lack of career progression that is offered in the same scale than other people, compared to other women or compared to other white men. There is also the question of overrepresentation in exploitative or precarious work. So it also means that it leads to low-paid jobs, women being at risk of exploitation and abuse, and of course, unstable contracts. I don't know if you know that the largest employer in Europe is an interim agency. ADECO is the largest employer in Europe, so they offer short-term contracts. So it also brings us to the stability of the labor market when there is a complex system that is enabling low-paid jobs, but also short contracts. Then the third trend that they are more or less intertwined is the question of pay gap and glass ceiling. Racialized women, Roma women, they do not manage to go through a threshold when compared again to men or even compared to other women. So what we see is a lot of lack of institutional compromise from employers, but also from policymakers to address that, to address this kind of experience, which are multiple or intersectional. Only few countries in Europe, and I should have started by saying that I'm talking about European context. Only few countries in Europe have in their legislation the recognition of multiple and intersectional discrimination, which makes the case even more difficult if a Roma woman or a woman of color, or even me, want to seek protection, or if I want to be declared a victim of discrimination of the labor market. So there is a combination of institutions trying to ignore the problem or addressing it in a not adequate way. What makes also us reflect on how these women experience their life in the labor market, how to make the labor market a safe space. And then we come to the unfortunate reality that women of color, racialized women, especially Roma women, fear or they go through let's say a pattern of microaggressions, discriminations, harassment. When they go to be appraised, they get the less performance in terms of appraisal. They struggle to get a progression in terms of salaries and, of course, promotions. So these are the barriers that we see in the institutional aspect as well in terms of discrimination. However, we all know that there are many diversity policies trying to be sold as the solution for these problems. But then what we see is still a problem because the diversity policies, they do not tackle the structural and the institutional problem of the system. And that's where diversity is important, representation is important, but repairing the oppressions, repairing the past abuses towards these communities is what is missing in diversity policies. So what happens when a woman of color, a Roma woman, enters in a company with a diversity policy, for example? Well, they're going to be recruited because there is a diversity policy, but then there is no interest to remove the structural and systemic barriers to make that place a safe place for them. And then what is leading is that there is more and more women who are not believing anymore that the place they are working is really diverse. And the average of someone that is staying in a company and leaves without a fully fledged diversity program support or policy, it's only in average 2-3 years, because the level of microaggression, the level of lack of support, or the lack of assistance when they face discrimination, put them again outside the system that is trying to protect them. But this experience, unfortunately, leads to another kind of, let's say, barrier. When I leave the labor market, or when I cannot access the labor market, I have to seek social protection. And then again, here is what we call as the APN, the missing poor. There is very few statistics on intersectional discrimination when it comes from socioeconomic background. The social scoreboard does not, if I'm not wrong, in the social scoreboard, the only intersectional data is on gender pay gap and pension. So how are you going to understand the other dimensions that women of color, racialized women, and Roma women face when you don't have the statistics that prove that this is a systemic issue? So what happened is, when seeking support and going to social protection, there are also other problems that put women back again in poverty. Poverty is multidimensional. I would like to read to you a quote from our last report from someone from Croatia. I quote, "I have an above average salary, but I live well below the poverty line. Everyone looks at income, but nobody looks at expenses. I spend 60% of my salary in rent." So this meritocratic approach that labor and work will solve all the social issues is also a reflection that we need to have. Because if poverty is multidimensional, why people still have to decide if they're going to pay food for their kids or pay the electricity bill when they have a salary? What kind of sacrifice I have to do to make sure there is a transportation for my kids to go to school, especially when they are so far behind, when they are living in rural areas, for example, where schools are very distant from the place where people live. When it comes to social protection, there are 3 main problems that we always see. There is, for example, in Europe, a council recommendation say that member states should have minimum income schemes. It means the safety net. It means the minimum support that a member state should give to make sure that nobody lives in poverty. Well, most of the member states, unfortunately, do not provide minimum income schemes, removing people out of the poverty line. All the minimum income schemes, they are still below the poverty line. It needs more adequacy in terms to eradicate poverty instead of alleviate poverty. And therefore, for us, alleviation of poverty is not enough. It's not making people less poor. It's about making people not poor at all. And then just to finalize, because I think I'm talking over the time, there is also the question of accessibility. Accessibility in social protection is a big problem. There is something that we call the non-take-up rate, which means which are the criteria that are formalized or who are requested by member states to make sure that these people can access social protection. I will say the case in Belgium, for example, the place where I live. 37% of the people, they cannot access social protection because they fail in one of the criteria. And with that comes the motivation, stigmatization, and problems with mental health. So I think from what I would like to leave today is really from this perspective of the labor market, is to understand that the labor market should be, and the discrimination facing the labor market should be also be addressed with the reflection what we're doing with social protection. Because when we lose a job, what happens with these people? And it's exactly that on what we call the missing core is in which we need to stress and put more data, more information, more policy, and more advocacy. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Juliana, for describing very well and very in depth with clear examples all the barriers which are out there. You give us a great account, which actually practically very well continue also the previous panel, kind of digging deeper in what is it out there for Roma women, and not only for Roma women. And you might be also right on the language, but I think that at the end, somehow we all speak about the same thing. And I think that's also important, that we have to name the concrete examples and concrete numbers, which we are doing here now, to make sure that when we, it's more like my conclusive remarks though, but it's to make sure that practically we really are able to zoom all those particular women and those specific cases, because otherwise we are not inclusive and we cannot comprehend. The policies practically cannot capture them all if we are not zooming to those most marginalized and more disadvantage. We have also here Claude Kahn. Claude Kahn, he also came to join us here at this panel from the Human Rights from the UNHCR. His title of the presentation will be about the human rights protection for the CDWD women and using the global frameworks. And I know Claude for many years and a big supporter of the women rights and Roma rights in general. So very happy to have you here, Claude, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me. I think I was introduced. It's really wonderful to be here and to see friends such as Gabi and Janet and Paul and a number of others. Very happy to be invited here and to have the opportunity to present. I was asked to present what protection measures are available to women from descendant work-based communities in the UN human rights protection system. So I'll try to make this as practical as possible in the short time we have. It will mainly be about what can you do to raise issues in the UN system, in the UN human rights system. Obviously, it's going to be a very short overview, but I'll try to do my best. I want to share screen for a moment just so you can see something. I hope I can find it. PowerPoints are not showing up. Hang on. Right, there they are. Okay. So broadly, you have, I think, three opportunities, three places that you can raise issues in what is a sometimes fractured, but I mean should be simpler system. And I think the general rule is that the system makes possible really for you two things. One is where there are serious cases of human rights abuse, they can be communicated by an independent expert to your government, to the government relevant. They will go public. So one has to have the consent of the victim if you are not the victim, and one has to be mindful that the UN system broadly is very limited in its ability to protect human rights defenders or victims or witnesses. And so requesting a communication needs to be done carefully, and really one needs to do it with one's eyes open. That's one function of the system. And the other big one is really for those people who have a vision of what they want changed in the situation that they're working on, what they want changed in policy or in practice or in law at country level. The system offers some modes for amplifying your voice. So it is a system to visit when you know what you want, when you are cohesive as a human rights mobilization voice, and it can amplify that by having the UN say to your government, recommend to your government the measures that you're looking for. It is broadly, it is always a system that is open and friendly and supportive of civil society. I'll just briefly go into the three things that I think you have. So on the screen is what we call treaty-based and charter-based mechanisms. This is kind of two halves. I usually like to see that. I couldn't find the graphic, but sometimes it's even represented as like there's a circle and then it's cutting up. The treaty-based ones are these ones. I hope you can see my cursor. It says treaty-based. They are the supervising committees, usually committees, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's one missing, I think. I'm not sure why. Of what we call, of the human rights treaties, and these are all awful acronyms, but they can be spelled out, and they are on themes. So this is the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. This is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. These are the two kind of original overarching treaties. They set out all of the rights in the system. This one is supervised by the Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. This one is supervised by the Human Rights Committee. Then there are 7, actually. I'm not sure why one is missing here. 7 thematic treaties. One specifically on racial discrimination, very much your home. The Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, supervising the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. And also there is another one called the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, supervised by a committee of the same name. Then we also have Committee on the Rights of the Child, Committee on Migrant Workers. The treaty has a long name I won't aim to even try to remember the full name of. Committee Against Torture, supervising the Convention of Against Torture and Other Degrading Treatment, and the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, supervising the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Obviously, depending upon what you're working on, you could raise issues under any of these. If you were working on women migrants from descent and work-related communities, that might very well fit at the Committee on Migrant Workers. Similarly, children, women from descent and work-related communities with disabilities could very easily go to the CRPD, the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. When you want to go here is when your country is being reviewed. And for that, I'll run you through the website just very quickly in a moment. So that's the treaty half of things, and it's mostly used for expert review of a country around the theme of the review. Either one of these 2 general things or one of these 6 thematic ones. The missing one is on enforced disappearances. I don't know why it's not here. Then there's the charter-based system. So this is kind of expert-based. The states make the law, but then the law gets supervised by these expert bodies. It tends to be precise, legalistic, and probably the recommendations coming out of here are stronger and sharper than coming out of here. Charter-based means it's where governments are doing the supervision. It's the Human Rights Council, mainly, that's the big one. It also includes the General Assembly, all of the things that are set out in the UN Charter or thereafter. There's two things that happen here that are important to you. One is the Universal Periodic Review. You may be aware of that. That is where, again, your country is reviewed. I think it's a once in every 4-year cycle or 3-year cycle, where for 3 hours, the member states sit and do a peer review of that country. All countries are reviewed in the Universal Periodic Review. The recommendations are a little bit more diplomatic sounding. It's government to government. That is the Universal Periodic Review. Again, you can look at the schedule online, see when your country is coming, and send information in. In this case, you send information to my office, and it goes into a compilation that's sent into the process. Those are the two kind of review your country processes things. And then there's special procedures. Special procedures is the name we give to these experts who report to the Human Rights Council, and you no doubt know the names of some. There's the Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues. There's the Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women. There is the Special Rapporteur on Indigenous People. There is a working group on discrimination against women in law and in practice. There is a Special Rapporteur on freedom of religion or belief. There's a Special Rapporteur on human rights defenders, et cetera, et cetera. There is a broad, something like 30 Special Rapporteurs, 30 more, probably more. And then there are some specific for countries where a country is under supervision, where council has decided it wants a particular report. I think we have Myanmar, for example, at the moment. And others. So here is where you can get an emergency communication. So the special rapporteurs, they do country visits. They might come to your country and do a report and issue recommendations. They're the only part of the system that will come to your country, mostly. They do it, they're supposed to do 2 a year, each of them, but also they will write letters to your country in cases of serious cases. And again, there's a link on the website where you can do that. I think I'm running against time, but I would like to just show you the website so you can see where you are. It is mostly user-friendly, not 100% user-friendly, but it should be navigable if you have a little bit of patience. So I'll stop sharing this screen and I'll just run to the internet for 1 second. Screen share. Let's see if I can find it. Come on, internet, where are you? Sorry. I need to make sure it's actually displayed. Yes, it should be. Let me try again. So there it is. Okay. So here is our website. I hope this changes when I click into various pages. It would be really annoying to have to keep stopping, but you look under instruments and can you see this? Are you seeing this?
Yes, we see it, yes.
Okay, so you click, here's instruments and mechanisms. That's where everything lives, the things to which you could send information. And like I said before, they want your information. In fact, the system can't function unless civil society engages it, because the member state, I mean, every part of the system knows that the member states aren't really telling the truth, or are overly spinning positive things. And without facts coming from civil society, the system can't function. So it's a symbiosis between you and the system. You want it because it amplifies your voice. They want your inputs because they wouldn't be able to do a review without them. If we look in the instruments and mechanisms, here is the Human Rights Council, but here's the Universal Periodic Review. You can click in there and see, okay, when is my country coming up? Here are treaty bodies that, again, you can click in there and see when your country is under review by any theme that you're interested in. And here is special procedures. That's where you will see if you need to file an emergency case and get a letter written, it's here. Let's go in. I really hope this can get us there. So let's look at special procedures. Did it change page? Excellent. So, okay, so here's a summary of the information. It tells you about the fact that it takes country visits, and it also tells you about communications to states. If you want to have a communication sent, the link is here. All the stuff is here, submitting complaints. Online submission tool for communications to special procedures. There's a tool there where you send information in. I won't go to all this stuff in the interest of time, but this is all under that special procedures link part. If we go back to treaty bodies, let's see when a country is being reviewed. Here's all of the treaty bodies, but the first one that comes up is the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. I mean, that in many ways is your home. That and the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. So more information takes us to the page of the committee. And you have, let's see, I'm trying to find you the actual sessions. I need to move this out of the way. So there's news. There's, yeah, here we go. Okay, I want to know something coming up. So let's see, who did we hear from? Let's try Spain. Or we heard from Belgium, right? Let's try Belgium.
Yeah, thank you, Claude. Let's just maybe show this one, and then if there is some questions.
Okay, I won't even go into it. I'll let you explore. It's not, I mean, it's not the worst. It's not the world's, you know, sexiest looking website. I'll stop sharing.
But it seems quite straightforward, and actually
it's quite straightforward.
Yeah.
If you have any questions or would want to, you know, didn't get it or need something shared, please contact me. I will ping my contact into the chat if that's an option. But otherwise, I hope it was useful. I do hope you engage with the UN human rights system with the caveat that if you're engaging on behalf of yourself or any victim, do so under the ethics, consent, full information as to the risks, and you know, and only with the willingness of those people who want to go ahead. I hand back to the chair. Thank you very much, Gabi.
Thank you, Claude, and thank you for this practical presentation that you were just giving to us. I think that sometimes we are also forgetting that we actually should make these few clicks to make sure that we are submitting our reports, and although we might have some data, but not data might not arrive to those people who actually might read them. I think this is great, and for me, very happy that actually we managed to kind of put together today at the side event representatives from the national level, from the civil society, from the network of networks, but also Claude from the UNHCR, from the UN body. So really having this sort of different people who actually can do the influence and can make the difference if we are working together, and we are sharing the information and strengthening practically our efforts. So thank you for all being here. We still have about maybe 10 more minutes. If you don't mind, we even might go a little bit over the time. So if there is a question, I actually didn't see the questions, only the invitations in the chat for different events. And we also have the website that you gave. And if there is something that you would like to raise from the floor, you have to put your hand up, and then you will be unmuted when I call your name. So if someone is interested in asking, and I see Paul, so Pranjali, if you can unmute Paul and give him the floor, maybe he was already the co-host. So yeah, Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Gabby, and I'd like to especially thank all the speakers, very, very pertinent, sharp, and also Claude for giving us the overview of how we can intervene on behalf of the survivors as also human rights defenders. My question to Claude is, for a while now, we have been intervening specifically from the point of view of a regional specific focus, like from South Asia, it has been Dalits. From Europe, it has been Roma and Romani background. From Africa, it's now slowly raising the visibility of some of these communities. And also of Burakan, but also from Latin America, we have. So I'm now wondering if OHCHR has also identified these either as dissent discrimination or communities discriminated on work and dissent. I think there is some kind of a discussion that is going on. How is it possible to have more impact if we can bring all of us under this umbrella of communities discriminated on work and dissent? For us, it is very important because we are continuously being invisibilized in several of these UN mechanisms. And therefore, the impact of these instruments is quite reduced in what it can do at the national and subnational levels. So we'd like to really work with OHCHR and other bodies to see how we can increase our collective ability to bring these, not just in the preventive measures, but also as we shape certain policies and kind of interventions by the UN so that the regional and national engagement will be much better. So specifically, we would like to engage with OHCHR on these mechanisms. Thank you.
Gabi, should I answer that now, or do you want to?
I think I don't see any head up, so you can go directly.
Okay. Paul asks excellent questions. I think, you know, some of us who worked on the Roma issues from the 90s and 2000s, I think, you know, frequently had the experience that there was a description of the early civil rights movement in the US where they were acting like they were jumping up and down in a dark room. And, you know, if they heard someone go, ow, then they knew they had hit something, you know. So some of this stuff is advocacy and persistence in raising the themes repeatedly over and over again, as you have been doing. And, you know, and noticing that 4 times nothing catches fire, and the 5th time something does. So, I mean, the first thing is, I think, just persistence, but also, and here, you know, it would be interesting to think through what might be ready for a more deepened engagement on work and dissent. The home of this thematic issue has been the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. CERD passed a general comment, I think in 2000 or 2001, on the theme. And so it sort of set out 25 years ago already its normative thinking. It would be interesting to go there and ask the committee, well, what do you know, how are you advancing your thinking on these areas? And, you know, is there an update? Is there a review? Is there what happens now, you know, in assessing the success or not success of that general comment? I know that answer doesn't satisfy all of the groups here. I mean, I was in Japan, and the Buraku are uncomfortable with the idea, I think, if I heard correctly, that, you know, that anti-buraku discrimination would be racism. They, you know, they say it's not based on racial discrimination. There's an answer back to say, well, this is the door available, and conceptually it would be helpful, you know, if you really want to press the issues, to work within this framework. I don't know if that satisfies the community, but, you know, it has, I think this umbrella easily captures the situation of buraku and other similar descent-based discrimination if they're willing to come there. So that's one idea. Another one is we have a relatively new UN Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues. Will he, you know, there's an annual minorities forum. Maybe it's time to have a forum on work and descent-based discrimination. That's worth a letter to the Special Rapporteur to say, you know, what's your plan for 2000? There's already a theme for this year. It's in November, but next year is open. So maybe there can be open space. I think the key is to keep at it and to try and probe, well, where are the spaces that could provide more openings? I think I'm actually less familiar with what the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women has done, but it would be interesting to probe a thematic women in the CEDAW on work and dissent. I mean, I'm looking across this screen at a bunch of really talented advocates, so I feel like I'm saying things that you already know. But that's the way it's done. You know, push on the things and let's see what we can open. OHCHR is an entity, we're a secretariat, so we can do a report, etc. But if you want system-wide action, then, you know, your move is into the forum, the council, what the special rapporteurs are doing, the committees and their thematic work, and we can try and help you with that. I will give some thought to maybe who you might contact. Yeah, but on we go, as they say. I mean, it's always a work in progress. So yeah, hope that answered the question, at least partially.
Thank you, Claude. I see Paul is nodding, so I believe this answered the question. I mean, and I think that you actually gave a lot of good ideas for accelerating the progress, and I think that's what we really care here about, that we practically have to make several steps in making sure that there is some progress, that we are heard. And there was also some ideas because, of course, kind of the work around the kind of newly created stakeholder group that we are having, maybe to kind of break it down in the kind of more practical and more kind of operational also work where we can kind of create maybe sort of a kind of a working group. I don't know what would be the title for it, but maybe something that you're suggesting to us. So to practically follow up with the meeting, push. We are already having the UN Women on our site for many kind of parts of the agenda now, thinking of the guideline to build when it comes to kind of understanding more, you know, kind of how to kind of design or kind of how to kind of, yeah, how to integrate the specific needs and the challenges of the Roma women in the kind of policies and the program. So they're kind of like a partial work that we are also working on. And yeah, so that's also maybe a question to the plenary, but also to you, Claude, and of course the other agencies, like if there is like the openness for it to kind of really zoom closer to work with us, the representatives, the communities. I know there was this work on Roma in the past, but now we are kind of going broader with the idea of having bigger impact.
Should I? There's now.
Yeah.
Are there
It's like
other hands, or should I answer that?
Go ahead if you have an opinion on this. It would be appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, the system is not one thing. It's a whole bunch of different things going on, you know, sort of frenetically all at once. So the key is always, what can I connect with? You know, someone's got to do a report on intersectionality. Oh, that's interesting. Like, you know, how do we fit these things into that thing? And what's the harmony of it, and how far a stretch is it, or near a match is it? I think there must be an openness. Like, you know, if civil society is articulating the idea that that this is a broad frame that needs more attention at per se, work and dissent, and then, you know, then the system has to respond. It's just a question of where do we find the spots in the system that can respond? You know what I mean? So if you go to torture, I'm saying things you already know, but if you go to the Committee Against Torture, they'll go, oh, great, what's the torture angle on work and dissent-based discrimination? Maybe that's not the most harmonious point. I don't know, or maybe it is, if there's a lot of material on torture based on work and dissent. On the other hand, you're focusing on women in this meeting. That means CEDAW is super relevant. What do they say? Who can we write to there? The Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women, the Working Group on all forms of discrimination against women in law and in practice. Actually, you know, the system gives a lot of gender-based space. So how do we move things into that? Can we get a general comment? Can we get a statement? Can we get a, you know, some plan of action, some framework? Those are all test, touch, reach out, and see what comes back.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Claude. But that's what we say here in the kind of experience from the advocacy. We have to know on which table there is which document so that we can actually influence the document, right? So that's how you also work here in Brussels and on the national level. But I think that's also what is important that we practically see today, that kind of extending the network and having the kind of friends from inside that always helps.
Here's another one, just okay, if I can just say, you know, both the Special Rapporteur and us, as the High Commissioner, every year do an annual report. Reach out to me, get the contact for the person writing it, and see what can be squeezed in on the theme. So that's worth doing. I don't know where either of those things are now, but there's paragraphs to park in those things. So yeah, over.
And I have to say that our resources also with the rights experts really like kind of focusing on those different agendas when it comes to all our minorities or our groups within the DWD. Actually allows us to give a lot of insights and kind of resources, materials that we can share. Johannes, you have the last question, I think, of this session today. So please.
Thank you. I'm honored to have the last one, and thank you very much to all the amazing speakers who gave their contributions today and to really enrich the discussion. My question is maybe a little bit more also in the line of the discussion we had just now about outlook. And looking ahead, we have the second World Social Summit coming up that talks about is the follow-up from the Copenhagen Declaration 1994, and it's about decent work, employment, and also social protection laws, and amongst other things. And there, I think where framing in a way comes in, but also how to attack this very practically for our movement in a way. And I mean, maybe the first thing about framing is what we have seen now is that certain entities have, let's say, that they don't know in the beginning where to put us, but we see now, for example, that the German permanent mission have given us their point person for work-related issues, and not discrimination, nor indigenous communities. And that shows that there's a recognition that the work element is that what they consider to be the overarching kind of factor that keeps all of these communities together in a way. And then from that towards the second World Social Summit, or how to ensure that in let's say the outcome document, for example, we have an ambitious agenda that covers, let's say, communities discriminated and work and dissent in a comprehensive manner, recognizing that let's say, in the beginning, we talk about a full spectrum of rights, universal comprehensive social protection, and so on, but also that the intersectionalities we talked about today, but also specifically found for CDWD, are present in an outcome document as such, because there is no need of talk about, let's say, these social protection measures when those people are not included in being considered people in the first place in the measures of the government and so on. And so also, what's the plan ahead, looking at the outcome document of the World Social Summit, with a clear ambition that there needs to be a recognition of these communities, specifically as they relate to work and social protection measures, and that we don't have a discourse that is dominated by, let's say, poverty alleviation, but a rights-based approach based on the rights and fundamental principles to have social protection for everyone, regardless of the status, let's say, and especially looking at the CDW element. That's a little bit my outlook and contribution. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Johannes. So actually, I'm not sure if this was a question, but rather a comment, or do you want someone to still respond?
I'm 5 minutes away, and I spoke for 4 minutes, so I don't expect anyone to be able to comprehensively respond to this, but just some ideas also to see where to go from here in a more practical way, but also some ideas just now. But I'm happy anyone, I mean, obviously, to respond to this.
So Claude, do you still have something to say to it? Maybe a few more words to see one more.
I don't, mainly because I actually haven't reviewed the document yet. I need to see it. I know. But on that one in particular, I mean, those processes are important for us, but they somewhat sit outside the sort of human rights machinery that we're focused on. One way of following up the outcome document would be to bring it to the CERD, to the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, and say, you know, these were the conclusions from this process. What is your move to support implementation of them? That can be part of a discussion with, you know, some of the points in the human rights system. Also, I mean, thematically, that's another good one to raise with the Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues. He's new enough that he'll be sort of looking for things and ways to frame. And yeah, that one would be an interesting one. Over.
Thank you so much. So I will use the opportunity to just kind of look a little bit, kind of draw the session to the closing. And I think that what it's very important for us to acknowledge that we were talking in this broader context of gathering as a kind of being a side event of the Beijing+30 regional review meeting. We wanted to celebrate, but also critically reflect of the 3 decades of progress towards the gender equality. But I think that in our case, we were mostly critical because looking at addressing the work and decent-based discrimination against women, actually we are seeing that we are kind of spotlighting mostly, or that we are kind of facing mostly the challenges for our women on the ground, and we kind of highlight a lot of them with having Alba, Himani, but also Juliana here today, kind of showing us the real grounds, which practically what are the women facing on the ground, and there are some opportunities. They are scared. And we can advance the rights of women only if we are practically looking at the most disadvantaged one. And although we don't have so much data, we are working on them. I mean, the data are available. When we can show them, practically, they are saying that they are giving us very alarming information. And I really believe that those information actually can push more for a solid policy approaches, which they will work on, practically kind of getting us closer to accelerate the position of women in our societies. And as I said already before, I really see that the kind of biggest advantage of today's meeting is that we kind of cannot speak in the silos, that today that we had government, civil society, but also UN representative here at the same place. It's practically where we can kind of use our connections and our knowledge and to kind of make sure that we are pushing the right direction with the knowledge of the people themselves, practically those people who are targeting. So we have few ideas to take us further. I think that practically they are not only in kind of strengthening the partnership and cooperation among our institutions, that we also have to give the greater visibility and to these unique challenges that are faced by our women, particularly by Haratin Roma, Dalit women, that we also, which we were kind of showing, the kind of show today, that we should formulate and submit our complaints, give clear policy recommendations to the national governments, regional and international organizations and other stakeholders, and practically kind of work together on this kind of a common platform where we can share and work together. So I really believe that this is the best way to do. And I'm really want to thank everyone, first of all, for coming here. For organizers to organize this event and partnering for making this event happening, for the technical support that Pranjali gave us, and also for the interpreters which are here today with us. So big applause to everyone. Thank you so much. And I really believe that, this is just kind of a one small stepping stone in our bigger process that we are all joining together. And if you want, you can all, we cannot actually unmute. We would all say in our language, bye. But I think that we cannot unmute ourselves. But
Hey, hey.
Hey, that's Shledanou.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Much.
Can we have a photograph? It's possible, or it's too late?
It's too late, but we have taken screenshots already.
But we should have asked everybody to open their cameras. It would be good.
Yeah, we missed that. But thank you, Gabriela, for the amazing moderation
Thank
that you
you.
did today.
Thank you, everyone. It was nice to see
Ali.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Jennifer.
Thank you, Johannes. Thank you, Pranjali. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the host.
Goodbye.